They looked at you for a second, then something inside them pulled back. You felt the change before a single word arrived to explain it. Their eyes left first, but the real shift had already happened underneath. You know that strange moment when a room suddenly feels smaller around you. Nothing dramatic happens, yet your body goes alert like it caught a hidden signal. Maybe they glanced down too fast, or smiled with tension hiding behind it. Maybe the silence stretched half a second longer than it should have. Maybe their answer arrived late and it landed strangely flat in the air. Most people dismiss these moments because they seem too small to matter. But you have probably noticed that the smallest moments often stay longest. That is not random sensitivity, and it is not your imagination spiraling. Your mind is picking up mismatch before your logic has words for it. And the strange part usually begins earlier than the broken eye contact itself. By the time they look away, something deeper has already tightened inside them. Eye contact is never only visual, even though people like to pretend it is. It is one of the fastest ways humans measure safety, threat, closeness, and control. When someone meets your eyes, they are not just seeing you there. They are also feeling themselves being seen, and that can trigger more than expected. Confidence can show up there, but so can shame, attraction, resentment, or uncertainty. That is why these moments feel stronger than the surface behavior should allow. Your nervous system reads the pause, the delay in the withdrawal as unfinished information. Unfinished information is hard to ignore because the mind hates unclear social signals. You can move on from a harsh answer faster than a confusing one. What unsettles you is rarely the sentence itself, but the emotional mismatch beneath it. A person says something normal while their face, timing, and eyes say something else. That split is what your body catches, sometimes before you even understand why. You may have felt this in moments that looked ordinary to everyone else. But ordinary moments become unforgettable when someone briefly loses control of their mask. The first trigger often appears when you ask a question that lands too cleanly. Not rude, not confrontational, just direct enough to interrupt whatever script they were using. Questions like, "What did you mean? Are you sure? Or do you want this?" The words seem simple, but they remove the soft cover people usually hide behind. And sometimes the eyes lead because honesty suddenly feels closer than comfort. That moment can look small, but the pressure inside it is not small. The second trigger happens during silence, especially the kind nobody rushes to rescue. You stay still, they stay still, and suddenly the air feels less social. That is when people feel their own reaction getting louder inside them. They cannot hide inside quick words, easy jokes, or practiced friendliness anymore. And if your gaze stays steady, their inner noise starts feeling exposed. The third trigger appears when tension rises and you do not behave predictably. They expect apology, defensiveness, nervous laughter, or some visible crack they can manage. Instead, you stay calm, and that calm quietly removes their sense of control. A steady person can feel strangely threatening to someone relying on emotional advantage. So the eyes move first because the body searches for escape before words can. Most people get this wrong by assuming a broken gaze means one specific thing. They call it attraction, or guilt, or intimidation, as if human tension were simple. But hidden reactions are rarely that neat, and neat explanations often miss the truth. A person can look away because they feel drawn in and alarmed simultaneously. They can look away because they feel judged, or because they suddenly judge themselves. They can look away because your presence interrupts the version of themselves they prefer. That is why overthinking is not always the problem in these moments. Sometimes you are not inventing meaning, you are sensing conflict without a clear label. And conflict often leaks through the places people cannot fully control yet. The eyes, the mouth, the pause before speaking, the breath that changes rhythm. The deepest signal is often the quietest one because performance gets loud. Real tension usually appears in the half second before a person recovers themselves. That is why these interactions linger in memory long after the conversation ends. You have probably noticed this at work, when someone praises you and then breaks eye contact. The compliment sounds warm, but something in their face arrives a fraction late. That delay can carry envy, discomfort, admiration, or the fear of revealing too much. You feel the compliment, but you also feel the distance underneath it. Another version happens when you enter a room and someone looks away instantly. They were looking directly at you, then suddenly become interested in anything else nearby. Maybe that means attraction, but it can also mean comparison, insecurity, or hidden tension. The mistake is assuming one explanation just because the reaction felt intense. Intensity tells you something mattered, but it does not tell you exactly what. A third version happens after a calm disagreement that never becomes openly hostile. They answer politely, yet their eyes cannot stay with yours for long. You sense something shift even though the words remain tidy and controlled. What you may be sensing there is not anger alone, but threatened self-image. People often say it means nothing, just awkwardness, just nerves, just social noise. That comfort phrase sounds reasonable, but it often protects people from looking closer. Small reactions matter because they reveal where someone's control briefly weakens first. And control weakens where the emotion underneath is strongest, not where it is absent. That does not mean you should become suspicious of every blink or pause. It means patterns deserve attention when they match the feeling your body already registered. The key is not chasing certainty, but noticing where the mismatch keeps repeating. That is how you stay perceptive without turning every interaction into paranoia. So next time this happens, notice the timing before you analyze the meaning. Did their eyes leave when the conversation became more direct, personal, or quiet? The timing usually reveals more than the intensity because pressure rises at specific moments. If the shift appears exactly when honesty enters, that is rarely meaningless. Second, notice where the eyes go after they leave your gaze there. Downward often suggests self-consciousness, while sideways glances can signal scanning or avoidance. A fixed stare at objects can mean their mind needs somewhere safer to land. The direction does not give you a verdict, but it gives texture. Third, notice what happens right after they recover and start speaking again. Do they joke too quickly, explain too much, or suddenly sound oddly cheerful? That recovery move often shows how they manage discomfort once it becomes visible. Some people charm their way out, while others become cold, busy, or overly rational. The mask they reach for can tell you what the tension threatened inside them. What makes these moments so powerful is that they bypass your usual reasoning speed. You can feel something shift before words appear, and that can be deeply unsettling. Most social discomfort comes with an obvious reason, but this kind arrives half-hidden. That is why you replay it later, searching for the exact frame where it changed. Your brain wants a clean explanation, but human reactions are messier than clean stories. Sometimes two opposite feelings rise together, and the face cannot organize them fast enough. That is how attraction can resemble avoidance, and shame can resemble irritation. That is how respect can look tense, and resentment can look polite. The body leaks the conflict before the personality can package it neatly. You may have been taught to distrust this perception because it sounds too subtle. But subtle does not mean imaginary, and quiet does not mean unimportant. Many of the strongest social signals are quiet because real emotion hides before it speaks. And when you sense that hiding, you are often sensing a person protecting themselves. Protection can come from fear, pride, shame, desire, uncertainty, or even silent competition. That is why one broken gaze can carry more meaning than 5 polished sentences. Words are usually edited, but micro-reactions arrive before the editing finishes. And you can feel the unfinished version because it reaches you first. Think about the compliment that felt warm but left a cold trace afterward. Or the apology that sounded calm while the eyes kept escaping the moment. Or the first meeting with someone who seemed friendly yet strangely guarded. You did not need evidence right away because your body had already flagged friction. That friction is often the beginning of insight, not the beginning of confusion. Confusion only starts when you talk yourself out of what you felt. You do not need to guess their whole history to trust the pattern. You only need to admit that something real passed through that moment. Sometimes the person is not reacting to you alone, but to what you awaken. You may remind them of a fear, a standard, a loss, or possibility. That is why the reaction can feel personal, even when its roots are older. Still, your presence became the place where that hidden pressure surfaced briefly. And that is enough to make the moment feel strangely charged afterward. Another clue is facial mismatch, when the mouth smiles but the eyes retreat. You have probably noticed how unsettling that feels, even if the words sound kind. Kind words with guarded eyes can leave more tension than openly negative words. Because openness and discomfort are fighting each other in the same small frame. That conflict is often what lingers when you cannot stop replaying a simple exchange. You are not chasing drama, you are trying to resolve a signal that split. Once you understand that, the discomfort becomes information instead of self-doubt. What you were sensing was not always danger and not always desire. It was a rupture between outer behavior and inner reaction inside them. A brief fracture where their expression, timing, and attention stopped agreeing with each other. That fracture is what made the air feel heavier than the words. It is what made a pause feel loaded, even when nothing obvious was said. It is what made a normal answer sound slightly wrong in your body. You were sensing strain, self-protection, and a private emotional adjustment happening live. That is why the moment lingered, even after every visible detail seemed minor. If you have called yourself too sensitive for noticing this, rethink that label. Sensitivity is not weakness when it helps you detect emotional truth under social performance. The goal is not to judge people harshly, but to read moments more honestly. Some people look away because they are overwhelmed, not because they are false. Some people hold eye contact perfectly while hiding far more than nervous people do. So, do not worship eye contact and do not fear its absence blindly. Read the full pattern because the pattern tells the emotional story better. Look at timing, silence, facial mismatch, and what changes after the moment breaks. That is how you become perceptive without becoming suspicious of everybody around. And that is how social confusion slowly turns into emotional clarity for you. If this gave words to a feeling you have carried for years, stay with Novi Mind. Share one strange reaction you have noticed in real life because those details matter. And subscribe if you want clearer language for the signals most people miss. Next time, we are going into the smile that appears right when warmth disappears.